Can you introduce yourself,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm Laura Walker,
Mm-hmm.
aka Akala, which
Mm-hmm.
is Starseed,
Mm-hmm.
and also
Mm-hmm.
Mystic Mama,
Mm-hmm.
because I do readings as well as healing.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the shamanic approach.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up very conscious,
Mm-hmm.
so I was like a little old soul.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always isolated, separate, because children my age found me too grown up. Even at 5, I was doing things. Mystic Mama was a nickname I was given by clients because I used to do tarot readings and angel card readings, rune readings. But a lot of it is you use it as a medium, a tool. And once you start using, so as soon as you use it, you get a download. So it's like divine intervention. Something happens during, so I can read a card or a rune stone, and then I get other information coming through for the client. So I always find it easier, especially for clients, if they don't understand esoterics or any of this stuff, they come to you. And so they like the idea of having a tool that you use. And then the divine comes through. Because I believe when you're working, whether it's healing work, whether it's readings, even when I do counselling, because I've done couples counselling, and I do tend to work with more practitioners, because everybody's a wounded healer. Whatever field you're in, we all have traumas. So the way I work is to invite the higher self of that being that I'm working with to connect with mine, and then I ask both higher selves to guide us, because I believe there's so many unknowables on my part. I might think there's this particular problem, because like if a client says to me, oh, I've got kidney problem, it's not necessarily because of the kidney. The kidney is the symptom. It's not the actual cause of the kidney problem. So when you connect fully, we do anyway, because our energies, we have light body that surround us. We're more than just this meat suit. So I work on the premise we connect fully, not just energetically, and then allow the energies to guide us, the divine energies. And I call it divine energies. Some people call it God, some people call it Holy Spirit, prana. I just say creator energies, because we're in creation. And it's all deemed as magical, but it isn't really. It isn't, because we are part of everything, and we can't, even though we believe we're separate, we're not. And so connecting fully means that I'm able to download information for the client. And a lot of the time, the client will have a knowing in their solar plexus and gut. They'll just know when the information comes to them, it's directly for them. And so we work that way, or I work that way, because I don't want to trust the 3D mind, because the 3D mind is part of the physical 3D body. So it's like the higher being that I am lives in this physical form by choice. And because I'm in this form, the body has ego, it has emotion, and it has mind. And all of these things are designed to give us experiences that we wouldn't have if we weren't in this amazing. I can't even put into words how powerfully amazing this meat suit is, because it gives us so much experience. I mean, think about the tongue. How many receptors on the tongue, from chili to sweet to cold to hot to, we've got so many, just the tongue. And then you think about the skin, how many different sensations and sensory perceptions we receive. But it's tied into a whole bigger energy field. And so for me, going back to the original, the reason I do the healing work, I've learned over the years, I'm like a squirrel. I adore learning. I'm interested in different concepts. Sometimes, like yesterday with you, I'll argue it because I have a knowing of different things, because we complement, we both know different things. And so it gives you a broader, richer tapestry to work from. So I'm shamanic in my way. My background is family from Africa, my mother's side. They were or are witch doctors, which, if you translate it, is shamanic. You know, indigenous tribes have shamanic ways of living, which is with nature, with energy, with seasons, with the moon, with the sun. We incorporate everything that is because it's a part of us. But in many worlds now, people don't have any connection to their true value, their true essence. So it's almost like people are walking around. This is where you get the awake. It's said in a derogatory way, but it shouldn't be. Because if you're not awake to who you are, you're still sleeping. And I believe you can't force it. Every soul has its own destination and activation point. So until this soul is ready to actually awaken to the truth and the beauty and the love of who they really are, not the 3D doing, the 3D, I'm a doctor or I'm a healer or I'm a painter, because we all have these things we do and people believe that's who they are. So the awakening comes when the consciousness kicks in, but they're aware, and the awareness of that consciousness that sees everything. And when that starts to happen, then the beauty of, especially the work you do, starts to kick in, because then people start to realize there's a divinity that's in everything. And the famous Bruce Lipton, I believe, I used to really be crazy about him. He was divinely placed for me, for everyone, but for me. And the belief is that his favourite was, I am that, I am. And in that, it means literally anything, anything you look at, anything you perceive, anything you touch, taste, hear, on every level, I am that, I am. So it means everything you look at. There is no thing that isn't divine creation. And so, you know, I've learned more in recent years. I had an understanding, but I couldn't formulate it, that what we were seeing isn't really what it is. And then through an amazing guy that I worked with recently doing the Golden Age activation, Ian said, his name's Ian Welsh, amazingly beautiful man. And he said that everything, cut to the chase, stop looking at the kidney and the liver and this, it's not because he's a healer. He said, look at the atoms on a subatomic level. And every single atom has its own deva. So everything is alive. So what we see is constant, is actually jumping energy, lights. So things are made up of light, geometry, sound. So nothing that we perceive is actually what it actually is. So they're atoms, microcosm that comes together because of our thoughts. So Ian says, as many high-minded people do, the mind is the architect, not the mind 3D, but it's the consciousness that comes with an idea that comes into the mind. Then the mind is the architect that draws a pine cone. And then through the passion and love of it, and you think, wow, that's amazing. The heart brings it into being manifest. So the two work together. There's no heart that produces alone. There's no mind that can produce without the heart. So it's technology. I mean, this technology is unbelievable. So the argument right now for me, which I'm still diving into, is that we're here as beings to experience all there is. It doesn't matter, light or dark. As you say, there's no good and bad. They're just good experiences or not so good experiences. no matter how harsh, we manifest things into being like a play, and we're all co-creating. But sadly, for most people, even people that, like me, I want to co-create, I want to create, but I want to create beauty and love and everything in that divine place. But I'm still a child. I'm still learning how to create because there's so much implicated in the work of it. People don't understand that. They think, oh yeah, I want a pine cone, so I'm going to create it. But how does this infect everything else? So the mindfulness that creating is not, at the end of the day, just you. Are you infecting other people's free will? Are you causing consequences that are going to harm others without their permission? So I'm still going through the processes, and I'm hoping that the work I'm going to do with you, with the yoginis, is going to make a difference to my own conscious growth, because I would like to think that as the child of creation, many children, we're all children, even the plants, they're all concepts created. I'd like to think that I get to a certain point where I can sit in my being and create without doing. So I've spent my whole life doing. I've had many professions. I've gone through many, many paths, learned so many techniques, healing techniques. And my son once said to me, my older son, he said, Mum, when are you going to be enough? And that hit me because I realized part of me loves learning anyway. That's a given with me. I'm a squirrel, a hummingbird. I just want to experience so many things. But there's another part of me that didn't feel good enough. And so I kept, the perfect child syndrome, I kept learning new things, in order to be more. And inside, there's the little girl that couldn't get the attention, couldn't get the love because she wasn't enough. So in my adult life, it took my own child, who's an adult too now, but to say to me, Mum, you are enough. You are, what you've learned, you've always been enough, but what you've learned is enough now.
Okay, I would love to ask you, you were speaking about the shamanic healing, and you're from the shamanic lineage.
In Kenya. From Kenya.
So can you talk more about that? Like, what do you mean by healing, and what is this shamanism?
Okay, well, in our case, it was called witch doctor, but essentially you're working with the energies. You have a communion with the energetic forces. Different countries, different cultures, they call them from yoginis to deities to demigods, but whatever the label is, we are in communion, working with all the elements and the energies, the atoms. So everything, as I was saying before, the atoms are conscious. They're conscious, like you and I. So we're made up of millions of conscious atoms, and we are conscious. And so in the shamanic way, or the witch doctor's way, we know that the energies that we work with, we call by different names. So it could be called a demon, or it could be called an angel, but the fact is they're all one. And your choice, your free will of whether you want to harm or heal those around you, if you want to be benevolent or evil, as it's called, it's 100% your free will. And the energies, doesn't, as I said, it doesn't matter what you call it, Archangel Michael, it could be called Satan. The bottom line is, there is only the energy, and we manifest, we bring into being. And so, let's say a collective believe in Jesus, as in the Christian world. they manifest this
Yeah,
energy.
for example, like when I hear the term shamanism, there is a lot of problems which has been arising. Like there may be including the occult practices, which is from especially from South America, Brazil, and stuffs like that, and there might be including herbs like ayahuascas and stuffs like that. So, what exactly a shaman does? Like
A,
can
sh-
you define it? Like
a
for more.
shaman's world is based on
Mm-hmm.
what is presented.
Mm-hmm.
So if you arrive and you have a drug addiction,
Mm-hmm.
serious drug addiction,
Mm-hmm.
they work with you to clear the entities,
Mm-hmm.
the attachments,
Mm-hmm.
the belief systems,
Mm-hmm.
and cleanse the body.
Mm-hmm.
The ayahuasca is not
Shamanism. Actually. Can you explain, like what do you mean by shamanism? Like
there.
I had experiment with the tribes in Nagaland, where I went and saw what is their practices and stuffs like that, and shamanism and animism, all these things, all those sort of stuffs has been came over there. So what do you mean by that? Like what is that shamanism for you? For example, like especially when you are from that particular country, like like somewhere from the Africa, and what does it mean for you? Like what is it
For
exactly?
me, my tribe,
Mhm.
we
So each tribe has its own practices. This is
yeah.
Okay.
So some people call voodoo, some people call hoodoo, some people call shamanism, witch doctor. Each indigenous, whether it's Australia, whether it's Peru, Colombia, Africa, it doesn't matter. Even when you go to Russia, you've got indigenous tribes that have their own practices. It just depends. Most work with astrology, even if they don't speak astrology, they work with the forces of the moon and the sun, certain star sequences that come across. Work with elementals, whether it's water, fire, earth. So it's a given that these elements that they're using are actual real living consciousness with personalities and character, just like we do. But the difference is these beings that are manifest are able to give healing. They're able to cause chaos. They're able to cause death. They're able to help us as beings to transcend. But it just depends on our own focus. When you think about the double slit experiment, it showed clearly, so did Dr. Masaru Emoto, he showed that with water, that we, at the end of the day, what our beliefs are, change everything. So people don't have that understanding. So shamanism in itself is working with the elements, working with creation, the language of life itself. So each tribe has its own ways. Some work with sprites and fairies, others work with demigods, some work with Mother Nature, others work with the elements. So you work with water and the water power, and you communicate with water. So you can have like Indian American natives, they can make it rain because they know how to communicate with their elements and bring that rain. And it's not just about the water, it's about the clouds, it's about nature roiling and becoming what you ask it to be, because you know you're in command. But the famous indigenous Americans, they say, oh, we can make it rain, we just don't know how to make it stop. So that's their little joke. So they get their stones and they do their rain dance, and they're chanting their own chanting, and they bring the rain. And then they say these energies will work as long as they want to, and then they'll stop. So hopefully they don't cause mass flooding. But this is how it works. Fire, the same. Fire, I've worked with fire. I call it playing, because my knowledge as a 3D human isn't enough where I can, I know it's like you. It's it's a real being.
Mhm.
So any amount of fire, I
Mhm.
can talk to a flame on a candle and it moves.
Mhm. Mhm.
I can talk to it and it's still.
Mhm.
I can put my hand above it and it moves. Literally elongates towards my hand
Mhm.
without burning me.
Mhm.
But again, depending on my mood, if I'm in a bad mood, I can get burned. If I'm in a loving mood, it plays back with me. But there's an element of respect because you don't just go, oh yeah, I heard about this and I'm going to go play with it. It's about having a heart-to-heart response and a respect for the fact that as you are, you're a being, everything you interact with, including the air. So, you know, shamanism is about harnessing the energies, but it's deeper because you're communicating. You're actually communicating and you're showing what it is you want to manifest, and everything plays with you. Years ago, somebody once said to me, creation loves you so much, whether you're aware or not, that when you have a thought and it comes through your heart, let's say I'm upset and I'm saying, and this happened and that happened, creation doesn't see good and bad. Creation doesn't know that I'm just complaining. Creation feels my heart because that is the language. Greg Braden discusses it, so it's worth looking at his videos. And they talk about when you think it, it comes into your heart, and it's the Sacred Heart, Jesus. You see this beautiful heart just beaming the red love. But what people don't understand is he's showing you your heart is the language of creation. It is, not here. And the Heart Math Institute discuss how powerful the emission comes from the heart, and it's more powerful than what is emitted from the brain. But together, it is manifestation. But if it's unconscious, you can create things you actually don't want, like complaining. So I'm sitting here and I'm complaining and I'm telling you my problem, and creation loves me so much, it sees what I'm emitting and then runs towards me to give me what I'm emitting. Because the perception is if you're sending it out, it gives you more of what you're sending out, especially when it's powerfully emotional.
So if we put it in a way that the shamanism is the techniques which helps you to connect with the nature. That's what you're trying to say.
More
And
than that, with creation. Nature is just a part, just like we are just a part of the big cosmic giggle, if you like. It's a big cosmic giggle because you can cry and laugh all at once. No matter how bad things are, no matter how good things are, there's always the opposite because we're in 2D or not 3D, and it's all about opposites.
So there are what kind of practices like have you gone through? Only with the fire you went through?
I've played with water. You know, I can get a running tap and move my hand towards it, and it moves literally. And I did it once. I went to a school opening, so the children went to. We were going to different schools. So one of them, secondary schools, is in the UK, and they had the lab. We went through different rooms, obviously, to see maths or art or whatever. And we ended up in the science lab, and they had running water, and they had these little windmills. You know, the different things teenagers make. And at one point, I said to my son, this water, I was about to say to him, you can make it run faster or make it run upwards, depending on frequency. Because I believe in teaching children the real stuff, not the enclosed, boxed in part of something that's bigger. And as I said that, I moved my hand, and you know, in the lab, the water runs quite long because the taps are quite high, because they get test tubes and bumps and all sorts of things that they have to put in jars under it. So it's always quite a distance between that and the sink. And I said to him, oh, and blah, blah, blah. And as I went to say, and you can make the water run faster or run upwards if you use a frequency, the water curved and bent. And I did that because I was like, oops, and there were 2 or 3 boys behind my son, and they all went, "Oh, she just bent the water," and I thought, "Oh," because that's the last thing you want to do, because at the time in the West, they see us as strange beings. They don't see that we're just using the energies, everyone. There is no one that hasn't got access to all of these energies. Bruce Lee sending energy to knock somebody over. You didn't have to physically touch them. It's using the energies that we are and understanding that everything is energy, which is movement. Everything's constantly moving in motion. So shamanism has so many different aspects to it, because it's being able to, like Dr. Dolittle, talk to the animals, communicate with the animals, communicate with plants, know each plant as a being like you and I, understanding that everything works with you and everything's in you and outside of you. So it's being able to be the magician, as the Western term is, working with atoms. Many names, but the bottom line is working with the energies, the atoms, and the devas that hold the atoms, and being able to manifest from that. We're all capable. When I was 17, I was pregnant for my first child. And I remember I had to go, in England, you have to go to these government offices called council offices, and they deal with housing. And I was walking down this beautiful street, you know, with the old-fashioned 4-story, very Victorian type houses, basement upwards, and they were beautiful. And as I came into the street on the left, there was a big house had been removed, and they were building a modern apartment block. And I remember they had these, the pulley, and they were pulling up these floorboards, full-length floorboards up, 3 stories. And I remember with my whole being, because I was going to the office to ask, sign up to get housing, 17, pregnant, homeless. And I looked up and I remember with all my being saying, I hope, I really want that apartment, not the old house, because that's, to me, it was too big, too much cleaning, too much energies from hundreds of years of different families and problems. So I saw this modern new block that was just being built. I think it had 8 apartments. And with all my heart, I fervently looked up and thought, I really hope I get one. And carried on walking. It was a momentary thing. So I went through, I ended up going through homeless, and the process of homeless, you stay in a hotel, then you stay in a temporary accommodation, and then you get housed at your home, forever home. And then I was moved into a property, moved from that to another property with a small child. And then I think it was about, I don't know, 10 years later, I was sitting in my kitchen and I realised it was the biggest shock and evidence of how we manifest every moment of every day, and I'm not conscious of it. I was sitting in my kitchen and I looked around and I thought, oh, I'm in the house. And then I remembered that moment when I looked up and said, I really want this house. And it still hits me to this day. I actually ended up living in that house. But it wasn't direct. I didn't give it a timeline. I didn't say when or how. So I did a home swap with somebody that was living there, wanted to move to where I was, and so we exchanged council housing, social housing. And it took me about a year. And then I had a total recall and realised I had manifested this apartment. And I'd forgotten about it it took maybe 5-10 years, 10 years I think, but I ended up in exactly that apartment. So I always say to people, believe. Jesus said it. I'm not Christian, I'm not religious. I think I'm termed pantheist. Can't even pronounce it. If you believe, you will receive. So you have to have the total trust, not in something out there, in you. If you really want something.
So what do you mean by the shamanic healing actually?
So the shamanic healing is using the energies and sending it to whatever, whether it's a plant, whether it's water. You could have a river that's contaminated, trees that aren't well, people that have specific issues. So you use the energy of love and healing vortices, and you send that. Reiki. Reiki is classic, where you're using, they embed symbols, sacred geometry, sacred symbols into you so that you activate or empower your healing abilities. But I have to argue that everyone has that. I did Reiki because I already had the energy, but it was a school of thought, an ideology where you learn a certain narrative as to how to use the energy.
So shamanic healing is basically sending the manifested energy in order to heal the person. This is what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Or the thing, because people limit themselves. And many teachers should be teaching like Ian Welch, go big or go home. Because you are a manifestor, you are a creator.
And also in the shamanism, I've been heard about there is ayahuasca, the use of ayahuasca, and you will connect it with the spirit animals. So what is your call on that? Like, how do you see it?
Ayahuasca is a very, very, very powerful. I call it deity. It's male, female, so it appears to you wherever you need it. So if you're in problems with your masculine, because we're each of us should be an equal balance of masculine, feminine, and then externally we have the masculine, feminine. Okay, but it's learning to harness and balance each aspect in ourselves. There isn't. I don't believe anything is without the masculine and the feminine. And as you said, the yoginis, you have your feminine counterpart to what's seen in the world as the masculine. So with shamanic healing, it's about allowing the energies to do what they want to, connecting with the being. Because in my experience as a healer, I've seen people who come and they're begging to get healed. I've seen people who come that want to heal. But if there's traumas underneath, there's a limiting idea, belief. And so if the inside says, I want to die, but the conscious mind, not the consciousness, says, I don't want to die, you've got what we term as dichotomy, there's a split. And the unconscious tends to win. So no matter how much healing you send this person, they cannot heal. They cannot heal because they are not in a space of wanting, genuinely wanting to heal. So, you know, the mainstream talks about a placebo, non-placebo. And you can give somebody a glass of water. If they believe that water is going to heal them, the belief, the belief actually causes the whole system to heal. And it doesn't matter if it's your sugar pill. Non-placebos, if you believe that you're going to have this illness. I've had people say, I'm a diabetic. You're calling yourself diabetes. You are not. Anything we do is not us. Anything we experience externally or internally is not us. It's an experience. So whether it's cancer, whether it's a cold, it's something that we are experiencing as consciousness through our beautiful avatar. Just like in the movie Avatar. This is our avatar. And so if the body is letting you know that something has caused it harm. The body never lies, never. So any symptom you have has a cause. And through all the learnings that I've had, and I've had a lot of different teachings, because I told you I'm a hummingbird, I just hungry. I learn as much as I can because I enjoy it. And I also hope that certain aspects of my inner abilities will be unlocked with each thing. And you don't know, it could be tapping, EFT, hypnotherapy, matrix re-imprinting, meta health. There's so many. There's no right or wrong. It's just as we are learning, we're at whatever point we jump onto the ladder, that's fine.
So what is this spirit animals actually?
Sorry?
Spirit animals.
Spirit elements.
Animals.
There's many, and they are real. I used to go to a park in Cambridge, in England, and it was massive. It used to be a stately home, and they literally, as the old man that died, he left in his will this massive grounds with 3 or 4 lakes, woodlands, everything. So I used to, because of my work, I sit online or with the clients. I spend a lot of time sitting. Being in the countryside, I'm always in the car. So you can imagine I've gone from this really fit, healthy person to this, and I thought I need to actively do something. So I started going to this park every 2 or 3 days. So I forced a friend of mine to come with me one day, and I sort of weeks and weeks I've been trying to get her to come with me. And eventually she tantrum, fine, I'll come with you. So off we went. We walked 2 hours around this park. We sat down on a bench between 2 lakes. There were beautiful blue dragonflies everywhere. It was just like a dream. Everything felt 20D. You know, everything was just amplified. The colours, the sounds. And as we sat there, we were sort of like enjoying the water and everything else and just relax. So at the end of it, she said to me, right, you made me come to the park, you can cook me lunch. So I said, okay. So we went back to my house. Now, imagine we're both in the kitchen. She's standing facing me and I'm facing the cooker. So she's over there. And something in me I was stir frying. I just turned around and I looked at her and she was actually taking her hand. She had this hand, you know, the old school hard handbags, very pretty lime, milk green, very colourful. And she had a hand inside this bag that was open. And she had a look of shock on her face. So I don't know why I turned, because I was stir frying. And I looked round at her and she was doing that and she did that. And she had a fairy, an elemental, clear as day, this little fairy in her hand, and it had sneaked into a handbag from the park, and she was holding it, and this fairy was looking at her, and then spun round and looked at me, and both of us looked at each other and looked at this fairy, and this fairy just jumped on one foot, lifted up, and then became transparent, but we could still see the energy. So she became invisible to the naked eye, and we saw her. She was very fast. She flew from above Terry's hand, my friend's hand, out into my hallway. And both of us know if you've got fairies, especially in your house, they can create havoc. They're naughty. They can be very naughty. And I was more distressed because I thought, oh my God, we've taken her away from her environment. Not intentionally, because we didn't know she was in the handbag. And that was, I'd always believed, you know, my father raised me on Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, because he was convinced from when I was 7, if I read it and read it and read it, that I'd finished, because the last book hadn't been finished, because J.R. Tolkien died. So most parents would force you to learn and read the Tolkien series because they believed that you'd get it and that you'd finish the story. That was my dad. So I was raised with a lot of information about fairies and unicorns and all these elementals, the trogs, and you name it. You know, I was raised with it, and from 5 or 6 I was reading books. Dad used to get me to read newspapers, so I was absolutely, that was the beginning of my
Mhm.
ability to actually just absorb and absorb and absorb. So, you know, by 9 years old, I was reading books most adults would go, oh, you know, because I loved it. So for me, I learned a lot from reading stories about children who grew up in the countryside, who had fairies.
So what is all these elements actually?
Everything, well, let's put it this way, they're in physical form, but it's all intelligence, it's all transmutable. So if you think of atoms coming in any form that you can imagine it. So, okay, we see these pine cones, you see them at the Vatican, there's a giant one in the square. You see them on the hieroglyphs where these beings are holding them and pointing them. They have two-way spirals. Now, I learned this through my tutor, Ian Welsh, and he said these are extremely powerful healing tools, extremely powerful. So as a healing tool, because if you look at the pine cone, it spirals one way and the other way. So together, the internals of this thing, because you have energetic power given out through your hands, so it's healing, so it's from the heart, intention, mind, heart. So I manifest the healing energy towards something. So if I want to heal you, this amplifies it. It's such a powerful electromagnetic tool. It harmonizes with the energy that we are, and then you point it. It doesn't matter whether it's on the moon, in front of you, or in another country. Everything is quantum entanglement. So like I'm jumping. When you look at brain, the electro.
No, actually, this is. Can you yeah?
So it's a healing tool. So this is a natural, again, nature. Nature is so giving. Plants, ayahuasca, stinging nettles, datura, everything around us, nature gives us for healing. Even what's known as a poison, if taken in the right amount, has massive, like mistletoe, clears cancer and many things. So this particular tool has been used for millennia. It's used by the ancients, and it's abundant. Pine trees drop them. You know, you can even hang them and use them as a pendulum, or you can hang it outside and it will open or close depending on whether it's going to rain or not. So it can even tell you today's going to rain, today's not going to rain.
Today's going to rain or not?
No, I haven't hung it outside because I use this as a healing tool. I was using it as a pendulum, but it's the cords come away, which I'll redo at some point. But it is a healing tool, so it magnifies, amplifies any energy you send through it to the target point. So whether it's a person you're healing. Now healing...
So it can be, this is from which kind of religion is actually?
I suppose, I don't know, because to me, people would say paganism. Because like witch doctors and shamans, they use the elements, they use the plants, they use the deities. You know, some sun worship, some moon worship to do rituals. But I learned through rituals and then realized you don't need rituals, because if you understand the power of the divine, and you know that everything is a consciousness, you can speak directly to the atoms, because they each have a being that holds that from the seed to its decay.
Okay, so basically this is from paganism. So
I wouldn't say paganism.
So where do you see
It's ancient. Ancient Egyptians used it. You know, so even prior to that. So who knows where it actually comes from?
Okay.
But it is nature. It's a pine cone, and there's different types. You can get the little ones, you can get the long ones. There's, you know, they each have the vortices that go both ways, which is powerful. If you want to grow healthy, bug-free, giant plants, food, yeah, any plant, you use spirals of the vortices in copper or gold or silver or metals. And you have one that's, you start with a giant spiral working its way to smaller, and then the second, and it's got a rod, part of, you know, you use it with a spiral, and then the second one you keep two at the same time, and the spiral is small, getting bigger, so they're the opposites. You embed that in the ground around your plants. It controls infestation of bugs. It keeps the water, the soil healthy and rich, and it causes the plants to grow massive. So the power of spirals is something people should be looking at. Not just for growing plants and food, also for healing.
So what are these animals? Like, you know?
Okay, so if I go to the pendulum is again a tool for asking questions where you get a yes or no response. Or if you want to know, i.e., how old a person is, you keep going and you ask. Show me yes, and for me it goes clockwise. Show me no, and it goes anti-clockwise, and it's pretty quick. And this is because it's working with your higher being. It's not working just, it's working through the physical 3D form, but you've got access to your higher self. You can call it your soul, you can call it anything you like, but it's the higher divine being that's guiding you, that's always, whether people accept it or not, or aware of it or not, it's the little Jiminy Cricket. Remember in Pinocchio, the little cricket that sits on Pinocchio's shoulder and says, no, 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 you mustn't do that.
So using for the...
It's called divining, divination. There's many forms, but I use this because it tells me a quick response to a question, a yes or a no. But ultimately, it's just a tool to help you to trust your own responses, because the divine is in you. This is just a physical form, a tool to help you. So when you start using the pendulum or muscle testing, ask yourself first. So before you swing it, say, is this blah, blah? And you hear inside you, yes or no. Using this gives confirmation. So you'll get to a point where you don't really need the tool anymore.
So what is this magnet actually?
Okay. The magnet, now a stunningly beautiful man came up with the emotion code and body code. He virtually, you buy the book, you self-teach, or you can go on training courses with him and get certification. I'm all certified out. I'd love to do it, but for me it's too expensive. And he also has software. But the magnet, if you're working on your central, we are made of electricity and magnet. So we're electromagnetic beings. And so we're human batteries. Yeah? We're living charged. Now our feet take in the electromagnetic forces from Mother Earth. This is why it's essential for people to go for walks barefoot outside and recharge. Animals, cats and dogs, they heal us. They give us healing. Our pets, they're our companions. But they have to go outside to be recharged every day, otherwise they get sick. So house pets don't get recharged, and it's very unhealthy for them, because a cat will sit, it's deliberately purring because it's healing its companion, human companion. So the electromagnetic forces that run through us come through our feet into our reproductive system, and then the energy goes up into the heart. The heart does not pump blood, it pumps electromagnetic energy to everything. And so and then it comes back down, regenerates through our reproductive system, and then back up again. So it's a constant motion of energy being drawn through our legs.
So this is a magnet is a tool to...
So the magnet supports clearing, but the clearing has to come with the intent. So if I decide that I want to clear a stomach problem, so I
So this is a tool to clear any energy blockages?
Yes, but you need, there has to be the idea or the mind that's the architect that decides I want to work with this, and the heart that says, yes, we're going to do this. And so the love permeates through the system. But the intent is everything. Intent is the architect. So when you're using the magnet, you pass it from the chin, in front of the chin, up straight, directly in one line over your head and your crown and down below your neck. If you're doing it yourself, obviously you can't go beyond the little hump on the neck, top of the neck. But if you're doing it for someone, you can take it all the way down. And it literally sucks out blocks and any tensions.
Okay.
But it's not a tool to be used alone. There's, you have to define what is the cause, and then work with the cause and ask the atoms on a subatomic level to neutralize and dissolve these issues. But one of the things that we keep coming up against is, if ancestral healing hasn't happened, when you're healing something of your own, it keeps recurring. And I've had clients who are desperate. They say, I've been to this, I've done that, mainstream, alternative, and it keeps coming back. And I'll say, have you done ancestral healing?
So basically this tool is
It's a tool.
Okay.
You can.
So
You
and
can
also
use your hands.
Okay.
Because if you do that, and then do that, you can feel the energy, because we are electromagnetic beings. So when you use your own energy, you don't have to use a magnet. You can use your hand. It has exactly the same power. So this is extremely powerful magnet. But you can literally, because you are magnetic, you can use your hands. I use them as tools because, one, it's teaching, because I teach clients. I don't just work with healing clients, because the more empowered, the more knowledgeable. Knowledge is power. And I firmly believe the more you learn about what you are, who you are, how your system works, then hopefully clients get to a point where they can self-heal. Am I shooting myself in the foot? No. Because even myself, I have moments where I get upset about something, because I'm human. And when I get upset, it affects
So also
my
you're
body.
speaking about golden age activation. What is that?
Golden
Age activation.
Okay. If you hold on a minute. So with the magnetic field, when you use it with other aspects, with the intent and the focus on what it is you want to work with, then you pass it and it pulls it out. So it's quite powerful. Or you use your hands. So I just use these tools because sometimes I'm tired. Sometimes I might be in a mood, but I've got a client. So I have to bring myself back into balance. So the quickest way for me is to use the magnet. Then at least I know I've done the work. It's safe. Golden age activation has many prongs. First and foremost, it depends on your need of it. Some people want it to remove.
So what is golden age activation?
It's raising your frequency by activating dormant chakras, dormant pineal glands, because people think you've got 7 chakras. In reality, we've got, as far as the energy goes, both ways. But within our systems, within our physical form, we've got 7 active chakras that are connected directly to our mother sun. Then we had 7 dormant chakras in between the chakras. Now, with the golden age activation, call it new earth activation, doesn't matter, you reactivate those 7 chakras that are dormant, and that's done through the second sun. And if you YouTube or go Google, you'll find there's a second sun now, and people are spotting it around the world. So the belief is that this was birthed by the current sun. So now you have the original sun that works with 7 chakras, and the new sun works with the new
Mhm.
7 chakras that are activated.
Mhm.
And so your body,
Mhm.
because we're in a shift, we're now in the golden age. We've come out of, you can research these things for people who want to know. It's abundant. The information out there is abundant, and it's even if it's slightly off, it's more or less right. We were in the Kali Yuga timeline, and we've moved into Golden Age. Golden Age is where humanity awakens. This is where we shift from the carbon base to crystalline. So our whole systems, this is why so many people are unwell. People think it's because of COVID, convid. No. It's our time to awaken to who we are and what we are and what is around us. You know, we manifest this earth. We manifest everything that we have in our field. And now we're starting to awaken to, oh my God, I'm in a simulation. This is manifested for me to have this experience, but we're shifting up. So each vibration, each timeline, so the last timeline was vibrating at a lower frequency, and it's gone up one frequency. So 5D is the next frequency we move into. So our system has to meet the challenge. So where we have blocks, we have emotional issues, limiting beliefs, things that are causing blocks, not just in the physical form, but in our energy field, which are called our bodies. Everything's tied into the chakras in the body. Because we've got traumas from past life, traumas from this life, ancestral traumas, there's so much going on. It's I can't put into words how amazing and magical we are. And so everything ties in and shows us a lot of the time.
So golden age activation is the making ready people for this particular
the next energy field. So we don't have a choice. Many people will die because there's too much harm that's happened to the physical form. Others will feel pains in their bones, pains in their muscles, sudden diarrhea, throwing up constantly. There's so many symptoms because we have so many things going on within our bodies, vital organs, blood, bones. Everything that's physical is now pushing up. So people are getting emotional, people are getting angry because it's all things that have been suppressed. And so if you learn to suppress everything, it's like just shoving gas in something and eventually it explodes. And so there's now, at this moment, you'll hear about different people acting out, running down the street naked, fighting. It's because all this suppressed emotion is coming up. They don't know what to do with it. My advice to people who are suffering, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, psychic, get healing. Get healing. It's not a one-stop shop, because you can't say, in my case, 63 years of trauma, not the whole time, but much of it I've been carrying. You can't just do it in one hit. Why? Because your body, your physical body, can't take. It's like, imagine you've got a gallbladder problem, a heart problem, and a womb problem, a woman. And she has surgery on her womb. And while a few days after the surgery, while she's her healing, regenerating, her whole system is just working to heal the wounds of her womb from the operation. And they say, oh yeah, let's give her heart surgery. What do you think would happen? The whole system would go into shock. They call it cytokine storm, and that person will die. Energy healing is no different. People think because the energies are subtle that it's just energy healing. It's as powerful as having a physical operation. And you go through all the symptoms of your body healing itself. Antibodies, bacteria, enzymes, everything comes into play and gets flushed out. That's why the diarrhea happens. That's why the vomiting happens.
So if somebody want to get activated into this, like, how they can contact you?
You can go through Ian Welsh himself.
Mm-hmm.
He's on Telegram and he's working with different people who work with him. Or you can contact me directly. I have, at the moment, my website's in the process of being revamped, so it's not open, but you can email me. carbon2crystal@icloud.com.
Okay.
The activations, many people do this by going through a process of each pineal gland, connecting all the organs, the chakras, whatever. Because I've got to a certain point, I can actually do it within 15 minutes. The whole thing in 15 minutes. If you want to do the long version, it can take 3 or 4 sessions, and you're going through quite maybe 4 or 5 hours. So it's like 2-day training and activation. But what I've discovered is that I can actually transmute the energy into someone. And so I've tested it, it's working. So, but if you choose to do it the way I do it, I strongly advise, there's 2 documents. One is all the activations and explaining what, where, why, how. And the second document is giving you healing techniques, which are crucial because you need to play with it, each one. And it's not about just becoming a healing practitioner. You don't need certification. This is divine. You can't patent it. This is divine. Just like ozone layer, when you have thunder and water, it makes H2O2. When it makes that, Big Pharma can't patent it because it's nature. So when you learn these things, it's about rising because you're now 5th dimensional. Doesn't matter what you do, you can't drop down from the frequency that you've raised. But what happens is you're working with the divine God, goddess self that you are. So it's actually now learning how to create and co-create so that we can make the world a more beautiful, better place.
Okay. Thank you for sharing time with us.
Thank you.
So if somebody, I'll put the contact details in the description, and if somebody wants, they can connect. Thank you.
Thank you.